Of course, denouncing Deng Xiaoping's vision of one country, two systems as being unworkable. We have seen articles on Hong Kong which are extremely cynical about its future, naturally. I suppose if Hong Kong does go on successfully, the old men in Taipei may decide that some disruption activities would be advisable, and in that case acts such as this would give the Hong Kong government the powers it needs, the political powers it needs, to move against at least the rumour-mongering and the propaganda activities which would go towards the undermining of Hong Kong. So there may be, it may be political in that sense.
But Davies and lawyer H.Y. Wong feel that the reporter's obligation to prove his innocence in court might contravene journalistic ethics.
Suppose Sir Murray McLehose, now he went to China in the late 70s, right? Now, when he came back, right, he assured the public everything's all right, right? But we now know that by that time, he already knew that China is going to take back Hong Kong after 1997. Now, surely, if a publisher published that news at that time, now it would be false news, because I'm quite sure everybody concerned would deny that it's true. Now, surely it will create public alarm or disturbance, right? Now, if the onus is on the publisher to prove that he has taken reasonable steps to ascertain the news is true, now, how could he be able to do that without citing his source of information?
Journalism, investigative journalism, all stands or falls by the journalist's access to sources. And that wording would require journalists to prove the correctness or truth of what they had written by getting the original source to stand up in the box and say, yes, this is true, and I did tell the reporter. And no journalist will reveal his sources. So that is very, very dangerous indeed. It means that we can only publish what people are willing to tell us and give their names to. And then only as long as it's true. And that would reduce us to puffery.
Some legislative councillors also objected to this measure and its implications.
Many publishers and journalists may decide not to risk prosecution and imprisonment by publishing such sensitive news at all. If so, the truth will never be told.
How could we let our suspected murderers and drug traffickers sit tight in court and make our prosecutors work hard to prove their guilt, whilst the onus is shifted onto our press?
But the acting Attorney General, Jeremy Matthews, pointed out that some other laws also require proof of innocence rather than guilt. He suggested that, if necessary, reporters could reveal their sources confidentially to judge and jury only. Mr. Matthews also rejected criticism that the ordinance is too vague. He says all the terms in question are clearly defined in legal practice, but many people are still dissatisfied. We'll look at their reasons in part 2 of Focus.
Of freedom to fabricate false and unsupportable information, or even to spread around rumors that cause public concern and alarm and fear in a bid to reap personal profits.
I own a publication which cannot be bought in ordinary stores. It is a paper on labor unions. Last night, I lost some sleep. I really fail to understand why the government has to hasten the passage of this bill.
Hong Kong is a small and densely populated territory with an alert population particularly prone to bouts of anxiety. News is disseminated very fast here, and false news is therefore more likely to have an impact in this community than in other locations.
This amendment reflects the restriction on the freedom of expression which we have seen in this region in the past few months. With the new Section 27 enacted, similar restrictions on freedoms of expression in Hong Kong could take place at any time when the administration's common sense and fairness has been eroded.
For some 35 years, this community and the media in Hong Kong has lived with these provisions as part of the law. Newspapers have continued to speculate wildly, accurately and inaccurately. Exclusive front-page headlines in bold type have subsequently been proved true or false. So at the heart of their problem appears to be the thought that a future government of this place could use this bill in a repressive and authoritarian way. I find this argument difficult to follow on three grounds. Firstly, if the rule of law is to continue to apply, the considerable burden of proof which lies with the prosecution, as eloquently described by my friend the Attorney General, will certainly inhibit its use as a repressive measure against the freedom of the press. Secondly, the absence of any law which makes the dissemination of false news an offense would not in itself guarantee that there would be total press freedom. Indeed, a better safeguard would be to build a system with checks and balances so as to ensure that powers were not abused. And thirdly, sadly, if, however, a future government is determined to restrict press freedom, the absence or presence of a law would not inhibit it, as every journalist who has worked elsewhere in this region must know.
可能有人有咁樣嘅疑慮或者咁嘅誤解，咁就呢啲誤解都亦都係可能有佢原因嘅。